Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spotted. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Tuesday. Coming in here, I thought that we didn't have any news today, but looks like we did have a move here. So let's check out a couple of things here. Oh, why is my financial juice tab closed? Let's fix that for starters. Okay, so we had housing starts higher than expected, 1.5 versus 1.385. That could probably explain. Wow, housing starts change 11%. That's a big outlier. Okay, so that makes sense. So it was, a piece of news that I kind of dismissed, but it was because it's usually not like a huge mover, but because the number was so far out of whack, so crazy, it did result in a move down in the treasuries. Very, very interesting. Okay, well, let's come to the charts and check out the rest of the market. Here. Okay, so treasuries about where they were, but on the lower end of the range. Sure has slowed down here, though. I mean, there was so much volatility here, and then this week it's been very, very quiet. S&P 500 looking okay. So we had two really good up days so far when we had no tariff scary news. It's been okay. So that's interesting. Oil on the upturn again. I don't think that oil got as low as they wanted it, though. Don't know about that bounce, but okay. Gold continuing through. Wow. That's a strong move in gold. And silver too, 34. Okay. Copper above $5. Whole metals complex is just roaring today. Japanese yen, still kind of on the downside, but we're not really seeing too much change in the dollar here still. There is, I would say, this most recent trend up here this morning does look significant, but not significant on the 30-minute chart, so that's curious. And Bitcoin's still just kind of middling around. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between this chart, or let's say I can't tell the difference between the chart today and what it was yesterday. So that's kind of, it's just got really, really quiet in Bitcoin. That again is a little bit concerning for those in Bitcoin. So, And I would expect today to be relatively quiet. So I am thinking, so first thing is we got to make sure that we turn on our strategy. By the way, yesterday for our strategy, the trade that it took while we were here, not a very good one, but I didn't notice it took a second one. And the second one erased all the losses and it came out ahead yesterday. I couldn't believe it. Because I keep looking for okay, so I know that there's these situations and probably even periods where it doesn't seem to work very well. And it's not running into it. The performance isn't amazing. I don't think they would pass a combine. Maybe if we leveraged it up. Well, I haven't been doing it for a month. But yeah, it just is not running into this situation yet where my past back testing says that it doesn't work very well. So I got something weird going on here. What's the looks like some of these windows need to, yeah, there we go. They put them on the wrong the wrong taskbar for some reason. There, and now we only have positions. Okay. All right. First thing I wanted to do was D asked me a question or showed me a bug. Oh, I don't know how I would test this though. Without shutting down the platform. Yeah, because you have to close NinjaTrader. So I guess I'm not doing that. He was saying that if you add drawings to like cumulative delta and then restart NinjaTrader, that the drawings all disappear. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't recall ever adding drawings to a subchart, except for maybe at a 0 line. And certainly don't remember drawing tools disappearing. Seeing a little bit of a bounce here in the treasuries. I guess we have to keep an eye on it because it is more volume and activity than we would expect in this situation, both because it being a Tuesday and there being a Federal Reserve meeting tomorrow. Uzi says that would happen to me too when drawing a 0 line on Delta. On my Delta, or... Like, my first thought is, like... Well, I think what I need to do is create a chart, add cumulative delta, and then just add some other indicator. Oh, on NinjaTrader's delta. Yeah, okay. Like maybe what it would be is create a chart, add NinjaTrader's delta, add my delta, and add like a volume. And then put a line on all three of those indicators, restart NinjaTrader, and see if all three of them disappear. Because maybe it's a NinjaTrader thing. I don't know. It just kind of sound weird. How is the black background in the spread in Jigsaw calculated? Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking. So if I come over here into Jigsaw and I come into Appearance, and I come into the trade column, and there's all of these different colors, right? And the default background is black. But what happens is if something happened, like if there was a buy order, then it changes the background for a little bit. There's a sell order, it changes the background for a little bit, right? And all of these different things will change the colors. It's kind of funny because I've never really paid attention to these colors, but there's no control over how it fades, but I think that it's just when there's an order, you know, and then it just fades over 5 seconds or something like that. And I think that's all there is to it. But not really something that I ever pay attention to, so... Yeah. I'm curious, the micro treasury yield futures, the 10-year, level 2 seems a little bit more active than normal as well. Yeah, there's also the momentum tells. I don't think I have that turned on in this one. I might have it turned on on Zen, yeah. Momentum tells, and you just set that. Trump supporters claim he wants to crash the stock market. Here's why. No, I don't think that's accurate. I think he wants to remake the economy, and that's going to be some economic pain in some sectors. But I don't think that the intention is to crash the stock market. I think that you kind of have to do it in a way that, like, limits the damage or spreads the damage out. I'm just kind of browsing around, not seeing too much on Reddit that's pertinent to our interests, at least. Putin demands halt to all Western arms for Ukraine ahead of Trump. Yeah, you cannot do any of the things that gives you negotiating power ahead of the negotiations. Makes sense. Let's read about the building permits thing. After an unexpected plunge in January, February housing starts were expected to bounce back modestly as the impact of storms fades. The analysts were right in the direction, but off in magnitude. Despite a slump in home builder sentiment, housing starts exploded well above the estimates. Building permits fell 1.2% month over month. Oh, okay. So that's probably because of, kind of catch up from like the storms and everything. Okay. That is the third month in a row of permits declining. Both single-family and multifamily building permits declined, while single-family and multi-unit starts soared. Home builder sentiment suggests the recovery in housing starts will be short-lived, so the forward-looking aspect of the residential construction data is not pretty, despite mortgage rates tumbling. That's interesting. So the way that Zero Hedge analyzes it kind of suggests to me that, like, okay, yeah, that one number was hot, but it's kind of the larger thing is still difficult. And so maybe it's not really a sell in the treasuries. Let's see. I don't believe we're going to redact anything, says Trump, about 80,000 pages of JFK assassination documents to drop on Tuesday afternoon. If they really drop it to this afternoon with no redactions, that's going to be crazy. But I mean, 80,000 pages? That's going to take some time for people to sort through, I think. Good grief. Be interesting to see how long it takes the internet to find the juicy stuff, right? Wait, what's this? Markets need more than rates to recover? Oh, please say it's not true. Authored by Daniel Lacaille. The consensus narrative tells you that markets are weak because of Trump's tariffs. However, that is a typical excuse that makes no sense. If tariffs were the cause of concerns, markets would have tanked in 2016 and in 2021. Remember that Biden maintained and increased all of Trump's tariffs between 2016 and 2024. The tariffs imposed by the European Union and China on the United States were much larger than the levies against them. However, you never read or hear that the EU and China tariffs were going to destroy the economy or lead to massive inflation. Like when they put them on, they did because there was a trade war going on. There was a lot of volatility in the stock market. So you're already saying something that's not true, Daniel. All right, let's read on. The mainstream consensus narrative always wants you to believe that tariffs are fine if imposed by socialist countries and evil if imposed by the United States. However, well, that's maybe true. However, if the market was alarmed by tariffs and the disastrous impact they might have on the economy, German and Japanese bond yields would not have soared. Instead, they would have plummeted as investors sought refuge. Furthermore, if the world feared a U.S. economic disaster, Treasury bond yields would have declined. I don't think that that's necessarily true as either, because one of the things that markets are concerned about is a further rise in inflation. And if you're going to have a rise in inflation, bonds are really hurt and damaged by that. So the flight to safety asset would not necessarily be Treasury bonds. I'm already not liking this article. He's saying a couple of things that I don't think make sense. German and Japanese bond yields would be declining and U.S. yields rising if that were the case. But what is happening is the opposite. Yes, because they're concerned about inflation. What is really going on? Many market participants are addicted to money printing and dovish central banks. In fact, 2 generations of traders have only seen rising debt, liquidity injections, and negative real rates, which help justify increasingly demanding equity and risk asset price valuations. Thus, the market greeted bad economic data with optimism, anticipating another round of monetary laughing gas. No, because if that's what they were doing, interest rates would decline. This guy has it all backwards. I know what he's talking about. The reason why markets are so volatile is because you know what to do when inflation remains persistent. Well, that last part is true. But it's not that few know what to do when inflation remains persistent. It's that when inflation remains persistent, there's really nowhere to hide. You get screwed either way. The Fed panicked twice in 2024 and conducted a misguided dovish policy. It delayed. Man, this guy has a view of the markets that is so far off kilter from my own. I don't even know where to begin. Okay, well, let's see where he's going with it. It delayed the reduction of the balance sheet in June despite rising inflation expectations and loose financial conditions. And in September, the Fed decided to implement an unjustified large rate cut despite concerning core inflation figures and exceedingly loose financial conditions. The loosest in 5 years, the Fed's excessive optimism about the disinflation path led to a significant increase in margin debt and exposure to equity markets. Consensus estimates assumed 3 or 4 rate cuts in 2025. However, in November, the Fed went hawkish and started to worry about the persistent inflation that was already evident in its previous 2 dovish moves. The market did not care and continued to believe that inflation would drop magically despite soaring deficit spending and record debt, as well as the highest money supply growth in 20 months. By January, market participants started to worry about persistent inflation. The Fed decided to be serious about inflation and provide a hawkish message coinciding with the end of elections. Were you not surprised to see how the Fed was unusually dovish and optimistic throughout the campaign and elections, and then suddenly went hawkish and tightened monetary policy once the new administration went into office? Higher for longer was halted, surprisingly, in the middle of an election, and now it is back. Shocker. Meanwhile, the ECB and China's People's Bank of China are conducting easing policies. Yeah, because, man, the thing that I think that this guy is missing is that there is concern that tariffs could lead to inflation. Because if you have increases in key goods, that increases cost of living, and then workers have to demand more money, and that can lead to inflation in some instances, but generally not too much, because you really need to have like an increase across the board. And what will probably happen is you'll have the increase in the cost of certain goods, and it will come at the expense of other goods. And the goods that we're going to see increases in is not broad enough to really cause significant problems for most people. But in other words, I don't agree with that concern, but that is what it is. The market's concerned that tariffs could lead to more inflation. So the components of inflation that are coming out, they're like cyclical. So without the tariffs involved, I think that is kind of something that you just kind of go, well, let's hold off, but I don't think it's a big deal, right? Why are markets rising in Europe and falling in the United States? Easy, because the money is leaving the United States and going over to Germany and Japan, because they believe that the United States, because of its policy, is in for a rough economic time and slower economic growth, and they're putting their money over in Europe because they think that their money will grow faster over there. Yeah. That were the answer is simple. Market participants are betting on a hawkish Fed and a dovish ECB and PBOC. That might be true as well. But I have not seen or heard anything. Maybe we should go. Well, I don't have any way of looking But we should keep an eye out for information that suggests that there is more demand for European and Chinese bonds. But my understanding of it is that right now the bonds in Europe are not doing well because of the whole German debts restructuring thing, right? I'm going to finish reading it. I want to, give it a chance so that we're challenging ourselves, even though I think it's saying a lot of things that are incorrect. Many market participants are scared of persistent inflation, but aim capital flows to the markets that may benefit more from money printing, as is the European case, and stimulus plans like China. However, this is a dangerous bet. Betting on European markets due to massive spending and easing plan is not new. We've seen it before. Central planning never works and disappoints. Disappointments that follow are enormous. This time is no different. It will not be different with China either, because its overcapacity and real estate challenges come from previous stimulus plans. Market participants in the United States may be used to insane spending, debt, and printing as the reasons to buy. However, the situation for the U.S. economy was unsustainable if the administration does not cut the deficit and the excuses of the public sector, and the excesses of the public sector. The stagflation risk, that's true. The stagflation risk we have discussed numerous times will be a reality. The United States administration has to do what is necessary to curb its fiscal imbalances and do so quickly, because the situation is not just unsustainable from a fiscal perspective, but also a danger to the US dollar. Market participants will need more than rate cuts. We need to see real rates falling, inflation under control, and the deficit slashed. The Fed's policy mistake happened in 2024. They have created the current turmoil. Investing needs to be focused on real fundamentals and less on following money printers, because the problem of monetary distortion is much larger than the alleged benefits of multiple expansion. When they did the 50 basis point cut, I kind of thought that didn't make much sense. I'm still kind of sitting here like, if cuts were justified back then, cuts should still be justified, because I still see problems. The issue is that the economy is not a monolith. There's different parts of the economy. There's only one interest rate. So part of the economy that I'm in, the tech sector, is just being absolutely savaged. Absolutely savaged. And it's very difficult to find work right now. There's a lot of people out of work. There was a little bit of a rise in hiring in late February, beginning of March. But then the Trump tariff stuff came about, and you saw the postings just fall off a cliff. I'm coming up on... D asks, did you figure out the thing with the CD? No, so in order to test it, I have to restart NinjaTrader, so I can't do that right now. But Uzi was saying that happens to him too, regardless, even if he uses NinjaTrader's cumulative delta. So I'm kind of wondering, if you create a chart and you put my cumulative delta on it, and you put like volume, and then you put drawings in both of them, and you restart, and then you restart, do both drawings disappear? And if both drawings disappear, then if I make a chart and I just put volume and I put a drawing on volume, and then I restart, do the drawings disappear? Maybe it's a NinjaTrader thing, because I can't possibly imagine how anything about an indicator would cause the drawings to disappear. It's got to be a NinjaTrader bug. But who knows? When I made my delta line indicator that draws different lines based on delta size filter, I made sure to add a zero line for that very reason, so that now it doesn't happen anymore. So you're kind of suggesting that drawings disappear on any subplot. But I don't know if that makes sense, because I can remember many times with some of John Bottomley's indicators wanting to put a zero line on there, and it would stay. So it maybe it's like a more recent bug or something like that, you know, like it didn't happen all the time. That's interesting. Well, you know what would make it disappear is a rollover, right? Rollover would be considered a different chart, and then all of your drawings disappear because it doesn't carry the drawings over on a rollover. So it could be that. So you know what? I was okay. So oh, by the way, I haven't seen him. Let's see if our guy, our editor, gives us a thumbnail or not. I made a video about cumulative delta. It is the most detailed and complete guide about cumulative delta out there. But while I was making that, one of the things that I noticed that I hadn't noticed before is that on my cumulative delta chart, I do not have the reset at beginning of session set. It's just from the beginning of the chart, right? And so each day, what is the beginning of the chart is kind of different, right? So when you would go back and you would look at the historical, you know, cumulative delta at the end of this or at the beginning of the session, cumulative delta would shift, just not to 0, to some other value. And that was kind of weird because it's like I only have 3 days on the chart, right? That was really interesting. Yours has been set like that forever. It's the same way NinjaTrader 8 defaults the delta now when you turn tick replay on. Oh, really? They don't reset at the beginning of the session either. Well, I changed my default in the late. Well, I don't know if it's in the released version, but in the versions of the code that I've got on my machine, I set that default to be reset on session start. I'm thinking about in the future adjusting the way the data that's collected, because right now I'm just collecting like the delta high low open close. But if you do something like you change, what is it that you can change? I don't remember now. On that one, there's nothing to change. It's a market order imbalance is the one that you can change. You can change the window. And then I would like to make it so that when you change the window, it doesn't invalidate your past historical data. We could fix that one. Cumulative delta, I don't know if it makes sense to do that for. Especially since it's an open, high, low, close sort of a thing. If you do a chart of 5 days and turn tick replay on, apply delta, and now it doesn't reset on the session. It effectively treats the whole data set as a session. Yeah. I guess what I need to do is I need to change it as, instead of like absolute values, as a delta change. So like the high is, you know, plus however many contracts, and the low is minus however many contracts. And then the cumulative delta would still be able to start from 0 at the beginning of the chart, despite it being cached data. But I don't know, like the whole thing with the cumulative delta is that I don't really feel like cumulative delta works in an algorithm very well. Running other things on top of cumulative delta, that's different. But just like the absolute change in cumulative delta, there's, you know, you need to make something that adjusts to market conditions. Otherwise, you're looking for like a 500 contract change, and in some situations that's too much, and in some situations that's too little, right? Now today I wanted to get into some of the machine learning stuff, but I don't know if we really have enough time for that. I think I'm going to end early because it's snowing hard out there. So I'm going to try and get up to the ski resort again today. This might be the last few times. I know something about me feels like, well, like, look, I'm doing everything else, right? Like I'm getting all of my other work done. There's a lot of work that I could pick up if I wasn't watching kids, but the work that I do need, especially like job applications and things, like I'm doing everything that I can possibly do. So, and I already paid for the ski pass and everything, so I think that it's totally appropriate to go to the ski resort. It's probably like one of the few things keeping me sane, but I do worry about optics, but probably okay because there's only going to be a handful more times. Only going to be a handful more storms. I think we got today, Thursday, which I will stay home for, Saturday, and then I haven't really gotten the reports going further out than that. So we'll see if this March miracle continues through the end of the month or not. And here I feel guilty if I take a nap. Well, so I feel guilty if I take a nap midday, but because I feel that it hurts my sleep at night. It kind of, yesterday, after my wife was done shuttling the kids around in the evening, I fell asleep for, I don't know how long it was. I didn't keep track, but it might have been as much as an hour. And, oh, I was really, you know, you get that thing where it's like, you just can't stay awake, you know? It was like that. And then you go to bed at night and it's, you know, it's late and just like, I want to go to sleep. I was so tired earlier. I hate that. I hate that. Or like you getting sleepy when I'm watching the kids. That's another one. They're getting better though. Like 6 months ago, it really was, I have to watch those kids like a hawk. The second you look away, something's gonna get destroyed. Ethan gets hurt. It's just, ugh. But things have changed the past 6 months. Ethan is more, he's more capable and independent of defending himself, I guess you could say. And Asher is better as well. So it's not enough that I can like actually do work while I'm watching them, but it's better. But it's not good enough that it's okay for me to just completely zone out and sleep, right? Definitely not. So I try not to sleep during the day. It's really frustrating, man. Like, because my body is in fight or flight mode, right? I am like, okay, let's go and kill things so that we can have a living. You know, like that's the point that my nervous system is at. But with the way that society is structured and the way that the market is structured right now, there's really not a whole lot I can do. All I can do is apply to the jobs that are out there and hope that it works out. There was a job that I interviewed for, I haven't heard back from yet, that I was really hopeful about, but I don't know, after the second interview, I don't know. It was like I interviewed with them for like 2.5 hours. And part of me is like, oh, maybe that's a good thing. But another part of me is maybe it was because they wanted me to say something and they couldn't get me to say it. You know? I don't know. the guy that was interviewing me, I didn't seemed like the kind of guy that gets bogged down in details really easily. So that was probably why it took so long. But it's been a few days. I don't know. I would have thought that if they wanted me to move on to the next stage, that they would have told me by now. Of course, they would have. There are also ones that they would tell me, oh, we're moving forward with other candidates first. So probably can keep hope out until I get an email back, but man. And that's like the only one that's going on. Created your own jigsaw. Okay, cool. You know, I really, with NinjaTrader's add-on functionality, it's really not that insane to create your own DOM. I think that it would be very, very difficult to duplicate all of Jigsaw's features, especially its responsiveness, because you'll have to make your own WPF elements. But making something that works, yeah. Something that works and just isn't laid out so terrible. Yeah. And multiple people have actually done it. So browsing through my one of the things for my social media is Serum is a major virtual instrument for like music production, and they released a version of Serum 2, and so everything on my feed is Serum 2, and I'm kind of like, okay, I know it was released, I don't need to hear about it anymore. Really is a quiet day. You know, I'm frustrated by social media just being quiet in general, because it seems like that because Twitter has declined in popularity, that there's just not as much going around on the internet. I really don't think people realize that the real value in Twitter was the real-time nature of it, that other social media outlets don't really have. It was also something that Dig did better than Reddit. It was like if there was a breaking news story, you would see it rise to the front page pretty quickly on Dig, whereas on Reddit it will take like all day. And Dig was like a front page. You could like scroll down to the last place that you saw it, you know, and then start again. And whereas with Reddit, you could come back the next day and see the same stories, because it doesn't work the same way. You actually argued me on it when I told you why threads wouldn't work? Oh, I don't remember that. I mean, I don't remember really taking any kind of... I do remember arguing with you about threads, but I don't remember what it was about. Because I don't ever remember myself saying, oh yeah, threads is going to be super popular, and definitely never thought that. And I just know it's been a thing going on for a long time now that I've been saying, well, these other platforms do not replace Twitter. They just don't. Actually, I remember that being the thing. I remember looking at threads the day that it came out, seeing that it had absolutely no real-time tools, and saying, oh, this is going to be useless for us for now. I saw your video about choosing instruments. Where have you found that Forex is the only way in some countries? So, there are many countries, especially in the Middle East, where in their culture, gambling is a big no-no, and anything that involves taking on risk is kind of considered gambling. So they don't have access to futures markets in many cases. Their access to stock markets might be limited, or they can only do their country's stock market, right? And so in those situations, if you want to day trade, the only really effective instrument to do it with is Forex. And so I'm talking about places like Morocco, Pakistan, etc. In fact, part of the reason why I say that is with my video editor, he can basically only do Forex. The headline was Threads being a Twitter competitor. My argument was there can be no Twitter competitor without real-time feeds, and Meta is hilariously bad at that, if not outright avoidant of it. Yeah, well, you know, I think that they did add some real-time features, but it kind of seemed to me that they did avoid the real-time features because it was like hard to support, like performance-wise and everything. Your thoughts? This price is moving up past the 30-minute cumulative delta is super flat. Yeah, very flat. I mean, it's very flat. In the 10-year, I would say in the 30 and the 5, there was a pretty significant increase, though. And I am seeing some shifts in the yield curve, seeing the 2 and 10 flattening. Well, actually, I am seeing across the board flattening since the housing starts news. But I'm also seeing some steepening through the overnight session. Facebook alone hates showing your friends' posts and in chronology. Yeah, it does. It's like showing you weeks old stolen content from third world aggregators. It really is. It's so wild to me how they destroyed Facebook. I really don't like jumping on the like billionaire hate wagon sort of a thing, because we don't really know these people very well. I'm not in a position to really know like what's really truly going on. With Facebook, it seems to me that every step of the way that I've been unhappy with what they were doing. I think that Facebook is like and I mean, it's Zuckerberg. It just seems to me like Mark Zuckerberg is not a very good manager, you know? It sucks because it sucks. Well, it's like an organizational problem. Like, well, just as an example, Facebook has come all in on the we're letting go low performers sort of thing, which is total BS. It's really unfortunate for anybody that's working at, or that was working at Facebook, that got let go and they're being deemed low performers. I really hope that the people in the market that are hiring see through that. But a lot of the things that I see, especially when you go to the subreddits for this stuff, which is a biased source, but you know, that's going to show you the worst stuff. But you know, hiring managers really prefer somebody that's already working and not somebody that's, you know, they like to poach instead of taking somebody that's out of work. So it's really harmful. And it is just kind of like their whole philosophy behind how they run the company. It just sounds like it would be an absolutely awful company to work for. And I think that is somewhat to do with Mark Zuckerberg. I don't think there's any philosophy behind it. It's just a matter of show them endless trash as long as it makes them click on or sit there. No, I think there is a philosophy behind it, though. I think that the philosophy behind it is our goal is to make as much money as possible, and they're going to do the most cynical thing that should supposedly make money. And when you do that, what you do is you maybe make slightly more money in the short term at the expense of your long-term growth. See, if Facebook had run the website and the company the way that the users want, then Facebook would probably still be the #1 social media network. And all of these other social media networks that have come about since Facebook would never have gained any traction. Facebook would just like what they did with Instagram, they copy it, they buy it or whatever and tuck it in, and right. But what's happening is nobody wants to deal with Facebook because the product sucks so much. What scientific papers have you found on sentiment analysis? Well, I can't list any papers off the top of my head. A lot of the things that I have found on sentiment analysis were things about like utilizing social media for sentiment analysis. So you can go and search for that, like just search like sentiment analysis Twitter, right? But the problem with that is that the methods that they were using to do that sort of stuff aren't really available anymore. Twitter has kind of nerfed their API. You have to pay for their APIs, so those sorts of tactics don't work so much anymore. That, and so many people have left Twitter. I guess people just spend less time interacting with people they actually know. No, I don't think that it's that. I think it's that, well, twofold. One is that there's not a lot of money in people interacting with people that they actually know. Right? I'm having a conversation on my friend's wall or whatever the deal is. That doesn't get me to click on ads and make Facebook money. So they want to show content that is more likely to make Facebook money. And then the second part of it is that they have found that engagement is higher when you discuss controversial issues, which again is, I think, kind of short-sighted, because I think that what happens, or what I have noticed in a community like that, when all it's doing is controversy farming, is that they burn out. Like, as soon as the controversial issue that's fueling them goes away, whatever the deal is, that website's not providing the dopamine anymore, and everybody just leaves. So at some point, you kind of, it's the progression of people in general. So here's another problem that I see social media networks doing, is that they go for the young audience, right? So they really gear everything towards, like TikTok, Gen Z. And the problem with that is that youth are much more dopamine driven. So they're very much driven by like novelty and excitement and things like that. And what happens as you get older is that you don't have as much dopamine, and you start to rely more on your neurochemicals like serotonin, which is kind of more like doing things that are familiar to you, and hormones like vasopressin and oxytocin and things like that. Okay. So what ends up happening is you get older and you age out of the social network. Now all of a sudden, millennials aren't really very engaged, and they're like the largest user segment still. Right? So you're again, because Facebook decided to go all in on, kind of making that feed really trigger that like novelty and all of that, and or like giving you ads and these popular pages and things like that. You're not able to build an actual real community on Facebook, or it kind of destroyed the real communities on Facebook, because my Facebook page had a good community for a long time before 2016, you know. Can you use Go? I don't know why you would use Google. It needs to be some sort of social media. I suppose that one place would be, can you analyze sentiment in comments on TikTok for sentiment analysis? I don't know. Reddit's probably still a good place to do sentiment analysis, but you'd have to pay for their API. Nah, it was the arm when Threads came out. We was arguing about something else, because I never thought that Threads was going to be a successful platform. But at the same time, I do think that we have to acknowledge that Twitter has been damaged. Twitter has been damaged. It's just not the same thing. It's not the same thing, and I don't have nearly as many people on my feed. I'm not getting nearly as much. Like it used to be that I would get so much quality information through Twitter, and now, you know, like the news squawks, those all work and everything, but otherwise I don't really see really good analysis on Twitter anymore. And I've tried going to the other social networks and looking at them. But it seems that that kind of content creation has not caught on those networks yet. Especially not Blue Sky, because I think Blue Sky is kind of the more popular one. The one with the momentum, let's say. Yeah, I think it's fair to say the right-wing culture machine kind of killed any real value to Twitter, or at least made it harder to find. Nah, I don't even know if it's that. It's just overall less content relevant to what I'm using it for. And maybe that was right-wing culture on Twitter chased them away. I don't know. One of the things is that these people that get on Twitter and they spend all day on Twitter and tweeting at people and stuff. Like, I don't get that. The Twitter community, what are you guys talking about? Twitter is like just tweeting into a void. That's the thing that I always hated about it. So I don't think that I ever got a large enough following on Twitter to really get anything out of it, you know? So it always just feels like screaming into the void. You know, it's funny because there were times when TikTok, it felt like that there was really good engagement on TikTok and really good comments and things. And now it feels like you're tweeting into the void. You make a post, yeah, like 300 people see it, but like nothing happens. Yeah, they all feel like obvious propaganda farms now. So I actually feel that Twitter the last 6 months has kind of chilled out on that side and has gone back to vapid content. Most of the content that it's showing me is nothing about anything. It's like Seinfeld, you know? Social network about nothing. But that could just be me. It could just be, oh, Seth's not interested in the politics stuff. I think one of the things that I find really frustrating about social networks too, especially TikTok, is like if I interact with a particular issue, you know, like a news story comes along, I'm interested in it, I leave a comment about it, or, you know, I want to make sure I know all of the facts about it, so I'll watch a video. And then they're like, okay, let's show you all 100 of the other videos about this subject that people have made. It's like, no, I know the information now. I don't need to hear about it again. Stop showing me this. So now I'm weary about interacting with anything on TikTok, you know, because I'll get it again, you know, or like there's plenty of times where it's like, I'll see some day trading guru person and I'm really want to, you know, explain how they're wrong and everything. But I know that if I say anything, it boosts it. And then I'm going to start seeing that person all the time and I don't want to, you know? So I just keep my mouth shut. You know, I've done everything to try and make these lights not be too bright, but I think sometimes I'm still squinting, like, especially this ice for some reason. And I should stop that. Well, by the way, the treasuries did retrace that move, which I think is probably appropriate, but I don't know if there's going to go much of anywhere since that's after that. I still expect today to be very tight and difficult. I think we'll stick around for another 30 minutes and then I'm going to go and try and get ready to go ski. And then when I come back, oh, I guess I need to get a blood test done too. So went to my gastroenterologist and they have to do blood tests every 6 months to check your, like, you know, your nutrients and all that sort of stuff. I was supposed to do it yesterday and I forgot. I should be able to do it today. So I have to get back because they close at 3. But I'm a bet that if I get there at 9, that by 12 o'clock I'll be pretty exhausted. There's a lot of powder out there. And when you get stuck in powder, that can be quite exhausting. Oh boy, r/day trading. Day trading is gambling. Lots of people call day trading gambling. Here I will explain how it is not gambling. Yeah. Gambling is just a word. Gambling is just a word that people use to describe taking risks that they don't like. Most of the time. I mean, there is like a legal definition of gambling. That's different. Nah, it just makes me think of my larger problems. Like day trading, long-term success in day trading is extremely unlikely. I kind of think that a lot of day trading is kind of more like you catch the short-term YOLO or whatever, and, you know, just not live off of that, but, you know, take advantage of it while you can, sort of a thing, right? YouTube, you know, it's a long shot. Probably not going to happen. And those are the two things that I've spent the most of my time for the last decade. And, you know, I want to do things that reward me, you know? Like, it's frustrating. The whole, like, you know, you gotta be able to be willing to put in work for long periods of time and yada, yada, yada. I've gone well beyond that, man. You gotta show me the money now. MicroStrategy has acquired 130 Bitcoin. VIX options expired today, but still in backwardation. Tomorrow will be wild. Microsoft commented on my TikTok, how can I turn this into an interview? Backyard. Oh my gosh, these guys built a snow jump into their pool in their backyard. Oh no, it's not a pool. They just made it with plastic. I would like to live in the mountain and have like my own little park in the backyard or something. That looks so cool. Push the high again. That shift there was significant. Something's definitely happening. The S&P 500 seems to be selling off. I haven't heard any significant news headlines or anything yet about it. So not enough to trigger our robot, though. Okay, it did tick into 21. Let's recenter it there. Well, the 5-year is just shooting out of here. I don't know. That kind of seems like doesn't completely make sense with just the equity correlation. It is a pretty strong sell in the equities, though. It's about 4,000 contracts in that sell. First 10 minutes. It really makes me think that there's got to be something else going on in the equities, and not necessarily a news headline. Yeah, not necessarily a news headline, but there's got to be some sort of flow that's going on over there that we maybe could have predicted that I don't know about. Octavius noting that fixed options expired today. That's, could be along those lines. Well, looks like they're not gonna push it again. They were that, but by the way, that was where the buyer's cost basis was as well. So that is kind of an area where if we're expecting things to be quiet, we should expect them to rotate between 19.5 and 17.5. It seems like when I put it in those terms, that seems like way too tight, doesn't it? What's this? I didn't see this. Nick Timmeros, hawks, doves, and ducks. Fed policymakers are alternatively referred to as inflation-fighting hawks or labor market-defending doves. Right now, Chair Jerome Powell looks more like a duck, calm on the surface while constantly paddling beneath murky waters. Here's a look at his swan song. Okay, enough with the ornithological puns. After taming 7.2% inflation to 2.5%, Powell now faces the ultimate challenge, a trade war, creating higher prices and weakening growth. His soft landing hits new turbulence. The central banking dilemma from negative supply shock of a trade war could be stark. Cut rates to support growth or keep them high to fight inflation. Officials must find the signal of what's fundamental versus tariff noise. Political dynamics are reshaping the Fed from within. Barr stepped down from vice chair. Trump will nominate Bowman, and Powell has urged colleagues to tone down provocative statements. Hawks and doves have traded places on the committee. Fed's independence faces the potential for intense political pressure. A new executive order increases administration oversight, while Trump's Department of Justice challenges the legal foundation of protecting independent agencies. That doesn't apply in the case of the Federal Reserve because their independence is pretty well enshrined in law. Powell's legacy depends not on economic outcomes, but on preserving the institution that has served as America's economic cornerstone for over a century. Shouldn't it have fired? No, it did not. I mean, you see there, there was enough counter flow off of this move that despite the relatively significant change in cumulative delta of about, well, actually it's a little bit less than 10,000. But we never got to enough of an imbalance to trigger the robot. Might happen eventually. I don't know. I think I'm gonna turn it off. I really think I'm just gonna give myself some extra time to drive and Hmm. I tell you what, do you look at it in the 5 year, there really seems like there's something going on, but I really not sure what it is, and overall it kind of still looks like a difficult market. Hmm. Yeah, AI models often realized when they were being evaluated for alignment and play dumb to get deployed. That's crazy. I'm gonna give it another 5 minutes here. I suppose the whole thing about why didn't the bot trigger is kind of like, well, I don't think I want it to trigger in this situation. We should make the other robot, or spruce up the other robot that trades more based on the auto correlation of cumulative delta.
Order filled.
Oh, well, that was enough to do it right there. It's going to be late on the draw, right? Hmm. Hey, Paul, late today. Oh, well, I'm glad you. I'm probably going to leave here early, but even though it just took a trade, I think I'm ahead. Well, what price did it get? 23. Oh, good grief. Well, you know what? Like that's the order optimization part, right? So, probably could have gotten, or probably would have gotten more like 22.5 rather than 23. But that's okay. It's going to come down here, right? Probably. We'll see. The thing that I think has kind of been funny about this is that there hasn't been a situation where like it was completely a disaster. Like there's been a lot of situations where it gets in and that's where it starts to go the other way. But then like after it gives up on it, then it goes. So it's like if you held it for 2 hours, it would have worked instead of 1 hour. Wow. This technology is getting creepy. Was looking at a Maserati and within 5 minutes the dealer, yeah. That's how that shit works, dude. You know what that means? That means that the guys at the dealership don't have a whole lot to do. Because there's not a lot of people looking for Maseratis right now. As soon as they get any kind of a lead that has any number attached to it, they call it. Yeah. Because that's what the company that I just worked for, that's what they did, was they had the software that, well, it was mostly about texting people and stuff, but, or at least I think that that's why the people that used it, that was the primary reason that they use it. But another part of it was processing leads and putting them into the queue for the people at the dealership, right? That's what I was thinking too. Quick to follow lead. Yeah, within 5 minutes. There's this whole thing that where like if they're not doing anything at that time, then they're basically just sitting there, and that there's this whole interface that like when new leads come in, so that you know they can beat the other salespeople to them and stuff. So, yep. Well, I'm interested to see how this is going to go, but we will stop streaming. We'll see how it goes. It'll hold it for an hour, so, and then, you know, who knows? Like maybe like yesterday, we'll take 2. It's a possibility. So, oh, actually, maybe not, because it took it after 8 o'clock, and it's not supposed to enter new positions after 9. So we'll see. Okay, but I'm gonna get going. Tomorrow, I'm not going to be here for the Federal Reserve meeting because I'm watching the kids. I do think that maybe tomorrow we can get more into the machine learning stuff, I hope. So we'll see. All right. In the meantime, stay excellent.